Hello everyone and welcome to Dutch Greybeard. I thought I'd do a catch-up video again, this time of my book haul. I've seen a lot of booktubers do their monthly book hauls, which are very interesting, and so far I haven't done any of those yet. I'm a little bit more than 5 months into my fantasy journey right now. Perhaps it's nice to show you the insane amount of books that I've been buying these last few months. In January I bought 28 books. I started off, of course, with The Wheel of Time. Let me make some space here. So these are the first 8 books. These are the ones I've read so far. So these are my first books of this year. And then of course we have the rest of the series. And here they are. They're in the wrong order here. On the bottom you can see the Wheel of Time companion. So I've got the Wheel of Time companion and I bought this, The World of Robert Jordan's The Wheel of Time. I intend on reading this one as soon as I've finished reading the whole series. So one of these days I'm going to start with The Path of Daggers, which is number 8 in the series, and then continue on, of course. It's very helpful for me to have the Wheel of Time companion at hand when I'm reading these books, because there are so many characters. It's mainly the characters that I need some help with, because it's very often that I start a paragraph and there's a person and I'm wondering, who is this again? Is this an Aes Sedai? Was she Black Ajah? Was she not Black Ajah? Etc. What's her strength? And all those kinds of things. So this is very helpful. So those were the first books I bought. Very early on in my reading career as a fantasy reader, I discovered the booktubers. I got so many recommendations and most of them I followed. So I heard about Brandon Sanderson, but I also understood that he was, well, you could say the most popular writer at this time. So I bought, other way, this is better, the Mistborn Saga, the first era. I haven't bought the second one yet. I still want to first read this one and then see how I like it. I'm quite sure that I'm going to enjoy this very much. But this is the second series I bought in January. So a lot of talk about Robin Hobb made me very curious. I remember having seen many of her books in bookstores at the time I still bought books in the store. But her name is mentioned so often in the booktube community. So I started with the Farseer trilogy, the first one, and I had the idea, well, let's read this one first and then see if this is a writer I like before I go for the whole Realm of Elderling series. So I bought this one first. As you can see, I usually buy the mass paperback editions, which are my favorite kind of books to read. I like to hold them in one hand if possible, preferably, and I always crack my spines. So I'm not very much of a collector. You could say the main reason I buy books is because of their content, not the way they look. Although I like these covers, of course. So that was the first Farseer trilogy I bought from Robin Hobb. Also January. We're still in January here, by the way. Another author that is mentioned quite often in the booktube community, not always in a positive way, is Patrick Rothfuss. I bought his two, all the way, The Name of the Wind and The Wise Man's Fear. Also mass paperback, as you can see. And while I was at it, I also bought The Silent Regard. What's the Slow Regard of Silent Things. So far I haven't read it. There's much more to read than I have read, but I'm very curious about this. I think it's really for me, his kind of writing. Just on the basis of what I've heard from the booktubers. Then the last books I bought in the month of January are the 3 books in the Broken Earth trilogy by N.K. Jemisin. They were not available in mass paperback, at least I didn't find them yet. I thought, well, if every book in the series is winner of a Hugo Award, it couldn't be bad, could it? Some people love it, others hate it. I don't think there are many who are in between those two. So this series makes me very curious. Perhaps I'm going to love it. Who knows? I like the covers, so that's one thing I like already about these books. So that's the month of January, 28 books altogether. Let's move on to February. In February, I got a little bit carried away and bought 39 books. In February, the first series I bought was the Rhaeria Revelations by Michael J. Sullivan. This is one of the few series I've read already, and I really enjoyed it, and I can highly recommend this to anyone. This is so much fun. The banter between Royce and Hadrian is very entertaining. There's much humor. There's also very explicit writing about violence and death and blood, but it's so good. It's so well written. It's an easy read. It's not, you don't need a Rhaeria companion to be able to follow the story and know whose character is speaking right now. Very much enjoyed this. This was my first buy in February. My second buy in February was, not very surprising perhaps, Song of Ice and Fire. In my case, again, the mass paperback series, 5 very big books, and hopefully one day there'll be 7. Who knows? This is also high on my TBR, as many books are at the moment. Then within a month after buying the first trilogy of Robin Hobb, I was so completely convinced that I could not go wrong with this author that I have to admit it, I bought the rest of the Realm of the Elderlings. So I bought the Life Ship Traders. Heard so many good things about this series. Can't wait to start reading this. I think it will take some time before I get there. Then the next one, Fitz and the Fool trilogy, also in mass paperback. And the next was the Tawny Man trilogy. This was the Tawny Man trilogy, and I also bought the Rainwild Chronicles, which is one series of 4 in this whole Realm of the Elderlings series. So 16 books altogether, if I'm not mistaken. 4 books, and well, when I bought these, I did not really have an idea about what was inside the Realm of the Elderlings, what was part of the Realm of the Elderlings. So I also bought the Soldier's Son trilogy, not really knowing anything about this, but assuming it was part of the whole series, which it's not. But, well, we'll see. After I finished the Realm of the Elderlings, perhaps in 2 or 3 years from now, I'll start reading this one. And I'm quite sure I'm going to enjoy that as well. We're not done for February yet. I was also intimidated by all the information I got on the Stephen Erickson series, The Molassan Book of the Fallen. So, as you can imagine, I bought the whole series. These are the first 5 of the series. Goddess of the Moon, Deadhout Gates, Memories of Eyes, House of Chains, and Midnight Tides. Haven't started this one yet, but looking forward to it very much. Then I found out that there were, next to the Tor editions that I had been buying, there were also Bantam editions. And as you can see, this one, the Bone Hunters, is a little bit higher than the normal volumes, and Dust of Dreams is even more big. But, well, there it is. I don't really mind too much, but it would have been nice if they were all the same in height. Whoa, this is heavy. This is not the end of February though, because at the very end of that month, I decided to not wait any longer to buy the Stormlight Archive in the mass paperback edition. Brandon Sanderson is working on his 5th at the moment. He's halfway now. He's more over the 50% barrier. I'm not sure. I've got so much to read, so perhaps I'll be reading this when number 5 comes out, or I'll wait. I'm not sure yet. I'm very much looking forward to this one as well, because what I hear about it, it has to be wonderful. Okay, that wraps up February. Let's move on to March. March was even worse with 41. Then March, I decided to give myself a present, and that is this wonderful volume of the Earthsea novels by Ursula K. Le Guin. I read the first 3 when I was young in Dutch, and even though I prefer mass paperbacks overall, this I really wanted to have for myself. It's a very heavy book, but it's a beautiful edition, and I'm really glad that I decided to buy this one for me. So this was my first purchase in March. So my second purchase in March is the First Law trilogy by Joe Abercrombie. Heard many good things about it, love to read it. It's getting old. Then I decided it was time for me to get to know Terry Pratchett. I forgot, hang on. Because I already read one Terry Pratchett, namely Guards Guards. I liked it, and I think back on it fairly regularly and thinking, perhaps I'm a bit too harsh in my judgment so far. I gave it a 3 stars out of 5, but perhaps I should give it another try. That will be not very soon because I'm not very much of a rereader. But anyway, I thought, well, let's buy 10 of the Discworld books right away. So I also bought these 5. Let me name them to you. The Truth, Carpe Jugulum, what's it say? The Wee Free Men, A Hatful of Story, is that what it says? No, A Hatful of Sky, sorry. And I Shall Wear Midnight. These are what I have understood is the Witches arc, or the Witches novels. And these are YA, if I'm not mistaken. I already labeled them, as you can see, with the numbers of the Discworld order. So this is Discworld number 38, this is 32, etc, etc. But this is not all. I also bought these. So altogether 10 Discworld novels by Terry Pratchett. These are Moving Pictures, Men-at-Arms, Interesting Times, and The Last Continent. My reason for picking these is because they were the cheapest. Sorry, I'm Dutch. Next, in March, I bought the 5-part series, The Chronicles of Prydain by Lloyd Alexander. These are children's books. I already read these books. They were very nice, and I did a full review on The Chronicles of Prydain. Then I thought, well, I hear so much about The Legend of Drizzt by R.A. Salvatore. I need to get acquainted with this myself. So for me, this is quite an achievement. I only bought the first 3 books and have not bought the rest of the series yet because I really want to read it first. I mean, I've got about 140 books on my TBR right now, only in fantasy, so R.A. Salvatore. But I bought a lot more books in March, starting off with the 5-part series by David Eddings, The Belgariad. Let's see if I can hold them in one hand. Yes, I just managed that. The Belgariad. I read these already. Isn't that good? And I did a full review on these books as well. Liked them, not overly enthusiastic about them, but they're very, very nice to read. So that's in March. And then next in March, I bought the Empire trilogy by Raymond T. Feist and Janny Wirtz. I'm very, very, very much looking forward to this one because I'm currently reading what I bought after this one, and that is the Rift Wars saga by Raymond T. Feist. I'm currently reading this one. I'm at Darkness of Sethanon. As you can see, these are pretty well read, and I very, very much enjoyed this series. It's very nice, good fantasy. I'll wait until I finished it, and then I'll probably do a full review on the Rift Wars saga. Very much enjoying this one. Still in March though. At the end of March I bought 2 more series. One is The Faithful and the Fallen by John Gwynne. Yeah, what can I say other than looking very forward to reading this. And to close the month of March, I bought the Licanius trilogy. Licanius trilogy by, how shall I pronounce his name now? James Islington. I've heard both versions running around on BookTube, and I still don't know. My gut feeling would say Islington, but, well, perhaps one day I'll learn. This is a trilogy that, well, intrigues me very much. I don't think it will be very long before I start reading this one. So that concludes March. Let's move on to April. In April I was down to 28 again. I was regaining my senses, I think. So my first series I bought in the month of April is 6 parts, and it's the Codex Alera by James Butcher. This is sort of a purchase on a whim, really. I'm not quite sure if I'm really going to like this. Sometimes you have a feeling about a book or a series of books. I may be very mistaken, but somehow I think I'm not very much going to enjoy this. But based on nothing really, that's just the feeling I have. But I bought it on a whim, and they're very nice books. Then I bought a YA series by Django Wexler. Also don't match. They're different in height, which is a pity, but never mind. It's The Wells of Sorcery. One of the booktubers really convinced me to read these books, which will happen somewhere in the future. So after the series of Jim Butcher and Django Wexler, in April I next bought the series Memory, Sorrow and Thorn by Tad Williams. I didn't like the cover art of the new editions of this series, so I went out and looked for the mass paperback with the beautiful cover art by Michael Whelan. Beautiful. This is bleached by the sun, but it's in good condition. Really looking forward to this one. This is fairly new. Stone to Farewell. And then this one is completely red. A red copy. Doesn't matter, to Green Angel Tower 1, and this one's new, Green Angel Tower 2. Heard a lot of good things about this series lately on BookTube, so this is also high on my TBR. Can I say that one more time? Yeah, I think I can. Alright, then I bought another series by David Eddings, which takes place in the same world as the Belgariad. This is the Malorian. Also 5 books. Yeah, looking forward to this one. As I said, I like the Belgariad. It was a very nice read. Enjoyed it very much, so probably will enjoy this as well. I was very intrigued by one of the videos by A Critical Dragon. He analyzed the way Jenny Wirtz writes prose. So I am very, very, very eager to start one of these days with The Wars of Light and Shadow by Jenny Wirtz. These are the first 4. These are beautiful editions, aren't they? Really wonderful cover art. I like it very much. So these are the first 4. These are the second 4. Unfortunately, Grand Conspiracy was not available in this new edition, so I had to buy an old edition, second hand. And then we have the last 2, Initiate's Trail and Destiny's Conflict. And as I understand, number 11, which should be the closing volume, is recently published or is going to be published very soon. One of the things I would like to mention about this, as the cover art is wonderfully done, really beautiful, and most of the inside is also wonderful. Recording at a different time of day, as you can see at the reflection in my glasses of the light, but I wanted to show the good font size. This is a nice font size to be reading. This is The Curse of the Mist Wraith, the first in the series, but this is a good font size. This is the way you would like to read and turn pages. However, but there is one which is just terrible. This is Initiate's Trail, and look at this font. You have to do double glasses if you want to read it. I measured it. It's 8 points font, which is ridiculously small. It shouldn't be allowed that publishers publish books like this. We're still in April. The last book I bought in April is this charming book, The Dreaming Tree, by C.J. Cherryh. It's a standalone, and I think it's 2 books published in one volume. And I know nothing about this, but I love the cover, I love the title, and I'm quite sure I'm going to have a very fun time with this book. So that was April, and in May I bought 13 books. My first purchase in May, actually I have to blame Mike's book review, because he is so enthusiastic about Pierce Brown and his Red Rising trilogy that I found no other way than to buy what was published in paperback so far, which is the first trilogy. It's this one, Red Rising, Golden Sun and Morning Star, and the second going to be trilogy is a trilogy. I think the last volume has just been published by Pierce Brown. Alright, then I bought the Greatcoats series, 4 books by Sébastien de Gastel. Oh, I'm missing one. Hang on. Here it is. It had fallen behind other books. So, as I mentioned, the 4 books by Sébastien de Gastel, the Greatcoats series. This was compared with the banter in Rhaeria Revelations, and some sort of a Three Musketeers story, but then with a lot of banter and a lot of male bonding, and I really like that very much, so why not buy it? Looking forward to this one. The last purchase in May was the trilogy The Gentleman Bastard by Scott Lynch, also because of the promised banter, which is apparently something I like very much in fantasy books. So we have The Lies of Locke Remora, The Red Seas Under Red Skies, and The Republic of Thieves. Yes, you know what I'm going to say. Okay, then, almost done. We go 1 week into June, because in June, so far, I bought only 4 books. 2 of them are on the way, so I can't show them to you yet, but I'll mention them. There are Tigana by Guy Gavriel Kay, and something with lions in the title, The Lions of Those were recommended to me by a good friend of mine. Then I've been thinking about where to start with Brandon Sanderson, because in my 5 months of being a fantasy reader, I have not yet started a Brandon Sanderson book, which is quite remarkable. But I'm going to, of course. And I first thought, well, why not start with the first book he published, which is Elantris. And I really thought that would be a good way to go. I've heard about this book that it's really a first, in terms of he was maturing as a writer and not very mature at this point. So I thought, well, that will be a good starting point, so I can be witness of his evolution as a writer and his skills as a writer. But then a good friend of mine said, no, when you start with Brandon Sanderson, you have to start with Warbreaker. So the next day I bought Warbreaker. I'm still not decided. Perhaps any one of you can give me a good argument why I should or should not start with Elantris, or why I should or should not start with Warbreaker. Or perhaps you say, no, you really have to start with Mistborn, or whatever other book Brandon Sanderson has put out. The very last book I'm going to show you is very strange. It's not very strange, the book itself, but that I haven't read it is very strange. At least one of my friends was completely flabbergasted when I said, I haven't read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. He couldn't believe it. So, it's a really nice thin volume, and since I've been a little bit more cautious in buying books because my TBR is way too big, I didn't buy the 5 books altogether. What's it said? The trilogy, that's volume 1 in a trilogy of 5. It's the trilogy of 5, I just bought volume 1. And see where that takes me. Probably after reading this, I'll buy the other 4 in this same edition. I like this edition. So, that's my book haul from January, February, March, April, May, and a little bit of June. In case you were wondering how much money I've spent on all these books, I'll give you the number. It's in euros, and I'm not ashamed, but, well, a little bit perhaps. It's 1,350 euros altogether. But that's so much wealth I've bought, so much enjoyment and information and traveling and learning. So I have no doubt whatsoever that it is quite worth the money. Okay, if you like this video, please hit the subscribe button or click the like button. And until we meet again at Dutch Greybeard.